Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we are going to work on what I call my river jade. You can see it's got some long shoots here that need to be cut back. It's quite thick. It's got a nice trunk on it. We'll look at that a bit more. Just take it for a spin. Some of these shoots are really long. This is the tree that constantly wants to grow downward. So I constantly have to fix that. And I've just been letting it, stretch its legs. It's in a kind of an inexpensive green pot. I basically want to restore it to this shape today. And I have a few pots. I may change it at some point, but I think it kind of works. It's sort of kind of a yellowish, froggy looking green. But let's take a look at this tree from the top because I always find it's helpful to see that because you want to eventually I want some sort of oval profile. You can see this area here. I've got this bare branch, and thank God you can see I've got a leaf coming on there. I've been waiting for that for a year. And so I am very, very happy because I really need something to grow there because it's sort of like a bald spot, which you only see from the back, but it's been bothering me for a while. But yeah, you can see since I brought it inside, it's growing like crazy. Let's take a look at the root base. You can see I've got some soil I need to get rid of here in the next repot, but it's got a lot of nice surface roots that are kind of coming down and gripping the ground, and they kind of curl around on the soil. And look at this one in the back. It definitely reminds me of like a tree along a river where, there's been some washout and some roots are exposed. And if you look at this, I think it's actually two trees that have kind of fused together. I mean, they're quite together, but I do think it might technically be two trees, which I will also investigate with my next repot. But yeah, it's an interesting tree and kind of one of my favorites with a strange growth habit that I constantly need to deal with. So let's take a walk down memory lane and I'll give you a little background on this tree. You can see this is what it looked like shortly after I got it, where it was really tall. I don't have any before pictures, but yeah, you can see it's just two stumps. Already had some nice beginning of rootage there, and you can see it's been in this green pot forever now. And yeah, so I just radically cut it back, no green at all. Um, and then let it recover. It's been in development 2 years, so I think just over 2 years. We're kind of on our third year here. And yeah, so I personally find that um, you know, it I've had good luck with starting with larger material and then just really doing something like this to really get it going. It can be hard to find larger material, so take advantage of it when you do find it, because I mean, look at some of the character that I started with on these roots. I mean, this was all kind of buried when I got it, but I exposed that, and it was a nice pleasant surprise where it has a decent root base to start with. So that's kind of gold in this business. Um, but yeah, it was probably, I don't know, 5, 6 times this height, and I cut it off. And I have various cuttings, which I don't know if I've done those trees yet. Some of them are, I haven't even initially styled them, but I will point that out when I feature working on those trees on the channel. But yeah, from beauty can come from some harsh beginnings. Maybe that's the thought for the day early, a little foreshadowing there. But yeah, you typically have to do some major work, and I find do it in the beginning because you've basically got nothing invested but money, and it's only which isn't nothing, but why wait 5 years and then do this? Just start off, and he who hesitates is lost. So I have another picture here I'll show you. This is when it started growing again. And yeah, it was yeah, it does take a while, because you're kind of growing those branches and pruning back and letting it grow and pruning it back, and so, I've lost track of time, but I think this was, the first year when I kind of got it outside. I had it inside, You can see from that last picture, and it started to grow, but then it really didn't put on serious growth for quite a while. And I should probably also mention that, like um, I mean, you can cut back hard like I did and cut everything back, and the tree will eventually recover, assuming you don't kill it with too much love and water. But it can take a long time, and my experience with ports is it varies a lot from tree to tree. Whereas if you leave some green on there, and maybe if I'd done this more piecemeal, um, it probably would have recovered much faster. So I always, uh, I mean, I recommend that, right? So in this case, I could have radically cut back either the main trunk or the trunk off to the right and left, I would have cut back the other one somewhat, but I would have left some green on there to stir the tree into action. Um, and give it really good care, and it probably would have blossomed and taken off. And I think I could have gotten uh, results more quickly and actually more safely, right? Because that way you're going to ensure the tree is using water, and so there's much less risk of either rain rotting the roots or you giving it too much water yourself. So enough history for now. Let's go back to the present day, and you can see we've got a lot of work to do here. Um, get the camera adjusted. This is tree. This is from the back view. It actually looks quite good from the back, I feel, because the roots go right down to the ground. And so who knows? I may work with that at some point. You'll see when I turn it around here. I think it also looks good from the what I've chosen as the front, but it's got some space under it there, and I'll have to experiment with that more as I repot it next time. But let's get to pruning. I think, this one has a very much, it likes to grow down. So I think it has some, what do they call it? Is it procumbens? Whatever the down growing variety is. It has some of that in its DNA, I think. Always when I'm pruning this thing, I usually just try to get rid of that stuff that's coming down. And yeah, I I just kind of come in here and just try to get it shortened up and get it into a reasonable profile, and then go in and do detailed pruning where I'm really, taking the branches down. If a branch has more than two coming off of it, I remove one of those. If something is growing either across the trunk or straight up or straight down, I take those off. But what I often do is just come right down to two sets of leaves unless I'm trying to strengthen up a particular area of a tree, in which case I'll let it grow some. But like in that case, I was coming straight forward. These are just too long. And, this thing grows a lot, so I want to get a little taper and movement in the branches. So also by cutting it back to two sets, it's going to change direction. And then you do that again, and it's goes from a little thicker to a little thinner, and it changes direction. And that's kind of what you're after to give some character of like a real tree here. So yeah, I'm just cutting it back. I'm always surprised how just even a few minutes of pruning just makes it look so much better. And to be honest with you, I used to do a ton of that. Like before I started doing the videos, I kind of feel like you guys want to see the whole process, so I tend to let it grow. Look at that thing, really long. I tend to let it grow, more than I would normally. Like, before doing the channel, I was kind of just slightly pruning these things all the time. But I mean, you can see this, like this is some serious growth. That last branch was, I don't know, 10 sets of leaves, so it's quite long. But if you kind of keep up with it, these really like being pruned. You could prune it every 1 to 2 weeks and just kind of, tightly control the way it's growing. And that's one thing I like about ports. I mean, you can keep it looking great all the time, which you can't really do with most other species because they have growth cycles, and that would promote weakness to the point where you lose branches and ultimately the tree, so you can't really prune it that often. But these things, they don't care. Um, So, I don't show a lot on the channel. Maybe I will start doing that with at least one of the trees. The other part of it is I have so many trees. It is hard to keep up. So, you know, yeah. But so now you can see I'm coming in, and this tree has pads, right? And you can't really see them, or you couldn't see them before we started. So my goal is to thin this out and cut back some of this new growth. Um, and mostly it's coarser growth, stuff that's come on rather recently, and older growth. And I want to, get rid of a lot of that is redundant or not attractive, and I will get new, finer growth. And the tree just gets more and more character and charm over time. Um, but yeah, particularly this variety, it gets kind of thin branches, like they do get thick and form kind of, I guess, what I'd call quote wood, but not nearly as well as the standard ports where they thicken up really quickly. This one, the thickening is glacial. It definitely happens, but it takes a long time. But it's an interesting growth habit because at the same time it puts out a tremendous amount of growth and lots of branches and lots of options to uh, take it in the direction that you want. So yeah, I'm removing a lot of this downward growth. Not only does it put branches kind of like diagonally down towards the ground, but it likes to grow straight down, like it is trying to hit the ground. So what I often do is just kind of lift up the branch and just kind of prune that underside because it really, really likes to grow in that fashion, and that also helps to create space and sort of the pads, right? Because you're creating some space between the layers so you can actually see them, which helps a lot. And I'm going to be honest with you, this thing is going to look probably quite sparse by the time I'm done because um, I guess because I feed them so well and they have good light, they just grow like mad. And so I really uh, have to cut them back kind of harshly, or they very quickly look, you know, overly bushy again. Um, so yeah, I'm just taking a look at it here. I think the profile, the top is getting a bit wide. So I think I want to bring that in. And this branch here is quite low, the way it hangs down. I think I'm going to shorten it. I'll probably come back and do more of that once I get to the fine tuning part where I get. But see how low this is. And part of it is the nature of this, as I've said a few times now. It really likes to grow that way, which I can, I definitely take advantage of that in areas where I want that kind of growth. But I don't want branches heading, at greater than a 45-degree angle to the ground. So I'm going to thin it out and shorten it back and expose these layers and pads, and then I'm going to come back and look at some of those branches, because I do feel that I don't know, I may have to do some selection on there. This tree, by the way, very easily propagates, and you can see, I mean, I've got a ton of cuttings on here, and I'm definitely willing to send those out to folks. I'm a bit reluctant to send out cuttings currently because, well, anyone who does indoor bonsai can attest to, you're gonna have, how do I describe it? Like, I typically have one big battle with bugs, and it's either usually when I first bring them in, or, uh, you know, and usually those are mealy bugs, or after we've gone through a long winter and before they're going out in the spring, for whatever reason, I usually get kind of a spider mite hit on typically just one plant. So I don't know why that is, or if they pick the weakest plant. But the mealies can be quite challenging to deal with, and I'm just kind of thinning this out, getting those pads and layers in there, shortening the profile out a bit. But yeah, I think I'll do a whole my 25-cent bonsai. I got a little more with that tree than I bargained for, and I'm just kind of taking this back and tightening it up. And I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, it was um, quite an ordeal, and I think I'll talk about more of that in the future. But anyway, so I'm not really sending out cuttings at the moment because I really don't want to send somebody any of my problems. And I had like a bit of scale on one of the trees, and you just kind of keep at it. And I use 70% isopropyl alcohol. Sometimes I'll just take it up in the kitchen sink and just hose the tar out of it. That works really well for the spider mites, actually. Just kind of rinse anything off, and then treat it with soap and water, or and I think another good thing is just prune it way back. If you as long as it's reasonably healthy. You should never prune a tree when it's markedly unhealthy. But if you remove the foliage, it's very easy to see them and kind of battle them that way. So anyway, that was my U-turn into fighting insects. And yeah, I think it's just part of like when they're outdoors, I'll see an occasional aphid here and there, but even then, I just get them with watering. I don't generally have to treat them at all out there for anything. But indoors, the bugs just have no natural enemies, and if they do get a stronghold, it can be challenging. So the best thing is to just get it early. That's really the absolute best thing. So here I got some growth coming straight down. I'm going to take that out. Really getting it thin now, which is typical. I really like to bring it back kind of hard. And I think what I'm going to do with this tree, I'm still sort of establishing where I want the main branches. So the tree, it's kind of in maintenance, but sort of this mode where I am still developing fine detail and whatnot. And I think at some point, when I get all the main branches where I want, I may let it grow out a bit just to heal some of these cuts I have if that isn't happening naturally. Because if you let it grow a lot, boy, that heals very, very quickly. I'm just getting rid of the downward growth now, kind of getting into the detailed pruning of this guy. And sometimes it's tough to cut this stuff off, but if you create more space, the tree will react by filling it in. So you know, a lot of folks kind of are a little shocked with how much I cut off, but I rarely regret it. So I think it really does help the tree. So don't be afraid if they're healthy to give them good pruning because um, I think it's just good for the tree all around. I think we're kind of getting. I'm going to take that off. I told you I was gonna. It looks so much better that way. Just getting rid of that stuff going straight down. I know it can be hard to cut off a branch that that was one of my thicker ones, but wow, that's much better, right? I do think I want to keep this one on the right. Actually, and who knows? Maybe eventually, I will. I don't think I'll ever take that off. I really like that one going off to the right. I may tune it up a bit. You can see kind of the flat spot where I cut it off. Um, but yeah, I think removing that lower branch really makes the tree look a lot better. So we're kind of getting to the end, and I will put it back on the shelf and let it grow out some more. Actually gave it quite a severe pruning today. I wasn't actually planning on taking this much out, but and I'm still going. But um, I always like to leave enough green to keep the plant's basic functions operational because I have seen these things. They can go dormant pretty quickly if you take all the green off. Sometimes they just say, "All right, I'm going to sleep." But if you leave it on there, they typically I find they take about a 2 week sulking period, and then they're kind of jumping right back into gear. But yeah, this one is looking quite good. And I'm just going to have another maybe bit fine tuning on it here and see if there's anything else I want to take off. But I think this is pretty much a wrap on this detailed pruning. Yeah, so I think that looks pretty good. I'll start cleaning it up, and I think a good thought for the day, it always bears repeating, is bonsai is always about patience. Like patience in growing, patience in developing the tree, patience in finding just the right pot, patience in dealing with bugs, like it takes patience and determination, especially with mealies who seem to just, I don't know, somehow come out of thin air sometimes. But when you get it under control, uh, it seems like they come on quickly, but they also sort of disappear quickly, at least for quite a while. And there are some stronger chemicals you can use if it really looks like you're losing the battle. I try not to do that. I mean, I really want to do everything with stuff that is not going to impact my health at all. But if you have it in an area where people aren't around and bees can't get to it, you can use things like bonide crystals, which are quite effective at killing just about anything. But let's give this guy a patient spin, and we'll take a look at it. You can really see the trunk now. I'm really happy with the pruning. You can see the branches really kind of taking it down to its essence here. Maybe take a little more essence off. That's better. Um, and I think it's quite charming. This is for me one of my favorite trees, and I think the pot's okay. I acquired a bunch of pots in this last year, so I'm looking forward to, who knows, maybe sometime this late winter, I'll go ahead and repot this thing. Um, yeah, you can really see the two trunks there, where they've kind of semi-fused together. I think at the root level. Pull it in for a super close-up, and you can get a look at the base there. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to developing this tree into the next year and into the future. Um, and I'll give you a look at that. We've got some pretty good roots going there. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.